The president of the Pleasants County Commission says he remains encouraged about the future of the Pleasants Power Station, even as the company that owns the plant has filed for bankruptcy. Pleasants County Commission President Jay Powell says he did not see the bankruptcy filing coming, but he's been reassured by company executives that jobs are secure and the plant will keep running. He says over the past 6 months, both units at the plant have run more than they have in quite some time, and the company has hired close to 15 new employees in the last month. Omnis Pleasants filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy earlier this week, with the company's CEO accusing former ownership of fraud. The filing also describes an ongoing fight for control of the plant, with former management accused of trying to force their way back in. Powell says he's more concerned with the plant maintaining its day-to-day operations than he is with what he described as a corporate restructuring behind the scenes.
As a county commission, what concerns me is that plant being operable, being safe, having employees, and continuing to be a strong tax base for Pleasants County. And those boxes are being checked right now. So obviously, we're thrilled that that's still the case.
According to the court filings, seeking bankruptcy will put Omnis in a position to sell the plant to a new owner in the future. Powell says he's encouraged about the prospect of the plant finding a buyer. He says he's continually hearing from people interested in the plant as an investment. A first hearing in the bankruptcy case is set for Wednesday.